This story is titled, My Blood Sister Falsely Accused Me of Sexual Assault to Our Parents. Now Seeks Reconciliation After Apology. I refuse. Hey Reddit, I'm 27 years old now, but this story begins 9 years ago when I was 18 and my life changed in ways I never could have imagined. And definitely not for the better. Back then, I was freshly stepping into adulthood, still trying to navigate the hardships of growing up while being part of a blended military family. My dad was on his third marriage, and we were stationed in Okinawa, Japan, which made our living situation even more complicated. Our household consisted of my dad and his wife Rachel, my biological sister Lily, who was 15 at the time, and 3 stepsisters. The tensions in our house were constant, mostly coming from interactions between Lily and me. Our arguments would usually start over something pretty petty, but would quickly spiral into full-blown fights. At the time, I thought it was just normal sibling rivalry and blamed it on the stress of living in a blended family. Looking back now, I realize it was far more than that. Everything came to a breaking point during a particularly chaotic summer. My parents were completely fed up with the constant fighting between Lily and me, and their solution was drastic. One of us had to leave. They ultimately decided that Lily would be the one to go. She was sent back to the US to live with our biological mom. At the time, I had really mixed feelings about it. There was some relief, I'm not going to lie. I wouldn't have to deal with her constant attitude anymore. But I also felt guilty about the whole thing, and kept wondering if this was the right decision for her. I had no idea that this decision would start something much bigger that would end up haunting me for years. When the new school year started, I was finally able to focus on my senior year, and life seemed calmer with just my stepfamily around. Unfortunately, that peace didn't last very long. A few months into the school year, my parents sat me down for a serious talk. They told me something that completely changed everything. Lily had accused me of sexually assaulting her when we were kids. My mind went completely blank as I tried to process their words. I felt like I was trapped in some weird nightmare and couldn't make sense of any of it. I tried to understand what she could possibly mean and asked them for more details, my mind racing through every interaction from our past. I could only think of one incident from when I was 11 years old, where I had repeated something inappropriate that I had seen online in front of her. I got punished for it back then and learned my lesson immediately. But now, years later, she was twisting this into something much worse. She had told our biological mom horrible things, claiming that I would lock her in the bathroom with me, that I had assaulted her there, and that this went on for years. She even claimed that I had threatened to hurt her if she told anyone, and that she only felt safe when we were oceans apart. These were complete lies, all of it. What made the situation even worse was my parents' response. Their reaction was honestly alarming. They claimed they didn't believe her, but insisted they had to take the accusations seriously. The solution they came up with only made everything worse. They put strict new rules in place. I was no longer allowed to babysit my younger step-siblings, and anytime I was around them, I had to have my teenage stepsister or an adult present. It was disturbing how easily they seemed to take her side, despite claiming they didn't believe her. I tried pleading with them, arguing that giving her lies any credibility would only encourage her behavior, but they stayed firm on their decision. "We have to handle this cautiously," they said. I wanted to scream back at them. "How about handling it fairly?" But I kept it inside. Word of her accusations spread like wildfire through our entire family network. My biological mom's side turned against me, and most of my dad's side did too. I could feel their judgment, even though they never confronted me directly. The only people who stood by me were one aunt and uncle, and a handful of cousins who had seen through Lily's manipulative tendencies over the years. For the next 2 years, I lived under the weight of these false accusations. I buried myself in work and focused everything on building my future. By the time I turned 20, I was ready to ship out with the military. The day I left for service, only the aunt and uncle who believed me came to see me off. I felt a mix of relief and sadness, hoping that the military would give me a fresh start, a chance to escape the suffocating weight of Lily's lies. But life had other plans in store. 2 years after the accusations, I got an unexpected call from my biological mom. She sounded really distressed and told me that Lily was in the hospital following a self-deletion attempt gone wrong. At first, I wasn't sure why she was telling me this. I hadn't spoken to Lily since the accusations and was honestly content keeping it that way. Then my mom dropped the real bombshell. Lily had finally confessed and admitted she had fabricated the entire accusation. Her reasoning hit me hard. "You seemed so happy over there," she said. That was her reason for creating such a devastating lie. Because I seemed happy living in Japan with our dad. I didn't know what to feel. Anger? Relief? Exhaustion? My mom kept apologizing over and over, saying sorry on Lily's behalf, but I couldn't bring myself to care anymore. I just thanked her for telling me and moved on with my life. I buried myself deeper in my military career, and by the time I turned 20, I had built a completely new life. I had a fulfilling career, close relationships with my stepfamily, and a fresh sense of purpose. But Lily stayed there, like a shadow in the background, just stuck with me over the years. Many family members tried pressuring me to reconcile with her, claiming she was ready to patch things up, but only if I apologized to her first. I had to apologize for making family hate her and for my childhood mistake, something I'd already apologized for years ago. The audacity of her demands was laughable. I love her as a sister, I always told family this firmly, but I will never like her as a person. I had zero desire to let her back into my life, especially after learning the truth that she'd made similar false accusations against other men in our family. During one holiday gathering, something else happened that pushed me to my limit. My dad and Rachel tried tricking me into being in the same house as Lily, hoping for some kind of reconciliation. The moment I walked in and saw her sitting there on the couch, I immediately turned around and left. I was absolutely furious at their deception. I booked a hotel nearby and refused to return until she was gone. My family berated me, saying I wasn't willing to talk things out, but I stood my ground firmly. To this day, I remain estranged from Lily. She's burned bridges with nearly everyone in our entire family now, and is currently being kicked out from our biological mom's house for lying yet again. I have reconciled with some family members, but Lily remains a chapter of my life that I have no intention of revisiting. My family keeps insisting that blood is family, but I strongly disagree. Family is about trust, about respect, about accountability, all qualities that Lily has never shown. Well, that's my story, until an update came on a regular Tuesday afternoon. My phone buzzed with an unexpected message from my youngest stepsister, Kelly. She rarely texts during the day, so I assumed it must be important. When I opened the message, my heart just sank. "Hey, just thought you should know," she wrote. "Lily messaged me last night. She's saying some really weird stuff about you." I immediately called Kelly, my mind racing with possibilities. Kelly, only 19 at the time, answered with a mix of annoyance and worry. "She's claiming you've been spreading rumors," Kelly explained. "Says you're telling family all these lies, trying to turn them against her." I could feel my blood pressure rising. It was bad enough that Lily had targeted me for years, but now she was dragging my stepsisters into her drama, people who had nothing to do with her lies. "What exactly did she say?" I asked carefully, trying to keep my voice calm. "She told me you've been calling her unstable and manipulative to everyone," Kelly continued. "But I don't believe her for a second. I just thought you should know." I thanked her for telling me and hung up feeling a familiar wave of frustration. For years, I had tried to distance myself from Lily's chaos, only for her to find new ways to pull me back in. This was the final straw. I was done playing defense. That night, I sat down with a notebook and started drafting a letter to my family. This wasn't just about me anymore. It was about drawing a line for the sake of my boundaries. I needed everyone to understand where I stood and why. Why I was choosing to protect myself. The letter wasn't easy to write. I started by addressing the accusations head-on, explaining how they had affected me over the years. When I was 18, I was falsely accused of something so damaging that it destroyed my reputation and all my relationships, I wrote. I went on to describe how it took years to rebuild my life. I refused to let her take that away again. Then I outlined the pattern of her behavior, all the lies over the years, all the manipulations, how she constantly sought attention at the expense of others. "This isn't about holding a grudge," I wrote that part carefully. "It's about recognizing that some people, even family, are toxic. I can forgive what happened, but forgiveness doesn't mean reconciliation." Finally, I addressed the family members who had been pushing me to reconcile. "I understand you want us to get along because we're siblings, but family is about more than blood. It's about trust, respect, and accountability, none of which she has ever shown me." When the letter was finished, I read it over at least a dozen times. Then I sealed it in separate envelopes addressed to each family member involved and mailed them the next day. I felt a strange mix of relief and anxiety. I knew the letter would stir up conversations, but I also knew it was necessary. The responses started coming within a week. Aunt Patricia called me first. She had always been in my corner. I'm so proud of you, she said warmly. You've been through so much. It's about time you set boundaries. Don't let anyone make you feel guilty. Her words meant everything to me. I was happy someone looked out for me. For so long, I had felt like I was fighting this battle alone. Hearing her understand my feelings reminded me that not everyone had turned their back on me. Other responses weren't so supportive. Cousin Thomas sent a long, guilt-filled email about how family should always stick together, no matter what. Another cousin, Jade, called to accuse me of being too cold-hearted. She's clearly struggling, Jade said. Don't you think she deserves a chance to make things right? I didn't bother arguing with them. I just calmly repeated what I wrote in the letter. Reconciliation isn't possible without trust. I wish her the best, but I can't let her back into my life. For the first time, I didn't feel the need to justify myself further. I had said my piece, and that was enough. In the weeks that followed, I noticed a shift in how people treated me. Family members who truly supported me began reaching out more often, offering their love and encouragement. Meanwhile, those who sided with Lily gradually faded from my life. It was painful, but also freeing. For the first time in years, I felt like I could actually breathe. My stepsisters were incredible. They'd always been my biggest supporters and kept reassuring me I was doing the right thing. You've been through enough, middle stepsister Olivia said during a phone call. Don't let anyone make you feel bad for protecting yourself. Their complete loyalty meant the world to me. They'd seen firsthand the toll Lily's actions had taken, and they refused to let her rewrite the narrative. In their eyes, I wasn't the villain, just someone falsely accused. As the dust settled, I realized something important. Sending that letter wasn't just about setting boundaries with Lily, it was about reclaiming my voice. For years, I had let her lies make or break me, but now I was taking back control. For the first time in a long time, I finally felt at peace. We'll see if her lies continue, I thought to myself. Weeks turned into months, and life started settling into a new rhythm. Unfortunately, this wasn't a good thing for my mom. The fallout from my letter to the family had largely subsided, and I found myself surrounded by people who truly mattered. Those who respected my decision and supported my boundaries. But as much as I tried to move on, the shadow of Lily still lurked. Her lies and manipulations had left scars that couldn't be erased. One day, I got a call from Aunt Patricia, the same aunt who'd always been in my corner. I could tell from her tone that she had something specific on her mind. I ran into your mom the other day, she began cautiously. She told me Lily finally moved out. I wasn't surprised by this news. Mom had mentioned in passing that she was nearing the breaking point with Lily's constant antics. Where did she go? I asked out of simple curiosity, not actual concern. She's staying with a friend for now, Aunt Patricia replied. But your mom says she's struggling, can't keep relationships with anyone, burned every bridge she's ever had. Part of me wanted to feel kind of happy about Lily's situation, but instead, I just felt tired. I'm not surprised, I said quietly. She's been doing this for years. Aunt Patricia hesitated before continuing. Your mom also said something else. She's trying to make amends with people. She's reached out to a few relatives to apologize. This caught me completely off guard. For years, Lily had refused to take accountability for her actions. The idea that she was now attempting to make things right felt strange. Did she mention me? I asked, already knowing the answer. She did, Aunt Patricia admitted. She told your mom she wants to apologize, but doesn't know how to approach you. I started laughing at this. She knows how to approach me. She just doesn't want to admit what she's done. Aunt Patricia didn't argue. She always respected my boundaries, and this conversation was no different. You don't have to do anything you're not ready for, she said. I just thought you should know. After we hung up, I sat with this news for a while. Was it possible that Lily was finally realizing the damage she had caused? Could she actually be trying to change? Part of me wanted to believe it, but another part, a larger, louder part, reminded me of all the times she'd used apologies as manipulation. A few weeks later, I decided to bring up this conversation with my therapist. By this point, therapy had become a cornerstone of my healing process. It was a space where I could unpack my feelings without judgment and figure out what I truly wanted moving forward. My aunt said Lily wants to apologize. I told my therapist about the whole situation. But I don't know if I can trust her. My therapist was thoughtful in her response. It's completely valid to feel that way, she said carefully. An apology is just words unless it's backed up by genuine accountability. Have you seen any signs that she's taken responsibility for her actions? I thought about it carefully. Aside from what Aunt Patricia had said, I hadn't heard anything suggesting Lily had truly changed. If anything, her past behavior, the way she tried to drag my stepsisters into her drama, made me even more skeptical. I told my therapist I hadn't seen any changes and honestly, didn't think I wanted to give her a chance to ruin my reputation and possibly damage my life again. My therapist reassured me that I wasn't obligated to accept her apology or let her back into my life. She told me that protecting my peace was as important as forgiveness. A few months later, I found myself at another family gathering, this time for Olivia's birthday. These gatherings had become a safe haven for me, a chance to celebrate with people I considered my true family. Lily's name rarely came up anymore, and when it did, it was usually just in passing. But this time, there was a shift. Rachel pulled me aside toward the end of the party. "I need to tell you something," she said with a serious tone. "Your sister tried to reach out to me recently." I raised my eyebrows at this. "What did she want?" "She says she wants to make things right," Rachel explained carefully. "She claims she's ready to take responsibility for everything." I sighed deeply, trying to understand her words. "What do you think about this?" I asked. "I think it's up to you," she said. "I'm not going to push you to do anything you're not comfortable with, but I will say this. If you do decide to hear her out, make sure it's on your terms." Her words stuck with me. For years, Lily had controlled the narrative, using lies and manipulations to get what she wanted. If I ever chose to engage with her again, it would have to be on my terms, not hers. That night, I sat down and wrote a list of everything I'd need to feel safe if I ever spoke to her. Meeting in a neutral location, having a mediator present so nothing like the essay accusations could happen again, setting clear boundaries about what could and couldn't be discussed. For now, the list remains unused. I haven't decided if I'll ever confront her or give her the opportunity to apologize. But for the first time, I'm really stuck on what to do next. I keep thinking about all the possibilities. Well, instead of having time to think about my next move, my family tried to corner me once again. It started with an invitation to dinner at my dad and Rachel's house on a regular Tuesday afternoon. It seemed innocent enough, just a casual family meal with them, Rachel, and my stepsisters. My dad's tone in the message was upbeat, even lighthearted, which put me at ease initially. I was still skeptical of family gatherings after the holiday ambush, but I figured this was a safe bet. I thought they'd learned their lesson, or so I believed at the time. When I arrived, something felt off immediately. There was an unfamiliar car parked in the driveway. It could have belonged to a neighbor, but my gut told me otherwise. Still, I pushed the thought aside and walked to the front door, trying not to jump to conclusions. After all, this was supposed to be a low-key evening with family. The moment I stepped inside, I saw her, Lily sitting in the living room, perched on the edge of the couch. Her posture was stiff as a board, hands fidgeting with the edge of her sweater. I froze in the doorway, my heart pounding in my chest. "Hey," she said, almost hesitant, like we were strangers meeting for the first time. I didn't respond to her. Instead, I turned to my dad, who was standing awkwardly in the corner, avoiding eye contact completely. I asked what this was. What the hell was going on? Dad said they thought this would be a good way for us to speak. I could feel the heat rising in my face. "You thought," I started saying, anger bubbling to the surface. "You didn't think to tell me?" Rachel stepped in then, hands raised like she was trying to calm the situation. "We just want what's best for both of you," she said, trying to mediate. "Family has been so divided. We thought this could be a step toward healing." I shook my head in disbelief. "This isn't about what's best for me," I told them firmly. "This is about you being uncomfortable to deal with the consequences of her actions. So you decided to ambush me." Before anyone could respond, Lily spoke up again. "I just wanted to apologize," she said quietly. I thought this could be a fresh start. Her words hung in the air, but they didn't land the way she intended. Instead of feeling reassured, I felt a lot of bitterness. "Apologize for what exactly?" I asked her directly. "For lying? For ruining my relationships with half the family? Or for pretending none of it happened?" She looked down at her hands, her face turning red. For a brief moment, I thought I saw guilt, but I wasn't interested in exploring it. I had spent years trying to move past the damage she had caused. I wasn't about to let her drag me back into that nightmare. Without another word, I walked right out of the house. My dad called after me, but I didn't stop. I jumped into my car and drove to the nearest hotel, my hands gripping the steering wheel so tight my knuckles turned white. That night, as I sat alone in the hotel room, The weight of the ambush settled on me. I felt completely betrayed, not just by Lily, but by my dad and Rachel. They knew how much her actions had damaged me, yet they still thought it was acceptable to force me into a confrontation without my consent. The next morning, my dad called. I let it go to voicemail the first time, but when he called again an hour later, I finally picked up. His tone was defensive, almost accusatory. "You didn't even give her a chance," he said, like I was the one in the wrong. I laughed in response. "A chance?" I repeated back to him. "I've given her years of chances, Dad, and every single time, she's proven she doesn't deserve them. She's your sister," he said, like that somehow made everything null and void. "Family is supposed to forgive each other." "No," I told him firmly. "Family is supposed to protect each other. Family is supposed to be trustworthy. She stopped being my sister the moment she accused me of something so damaging it destroyed my relationships and my peace of mind." My dad tried to argue more, but I wasn't interested in hearing it. I hung up the phone and blocked his number for a week. I needed space, not just from Lily, but from everyone who thought they could force reconciliation on me. Over the next few days, I reflected on the whole ambush situation. This wasn't the first time my family had tried to push me into a confrontation with Lily, but I was determined to make it the last. I decided then and there to set even firmer boundaries. If they couldn't respect my decision to stay no contact with Lily, they wouldn't have access to my life either. When I finally unblocked my dad's number, I made it crystal clear that our relationship was hanging by a thread. I told him I loved him, but if he ever ambushed me like that again, I would walk away for good. "This is your only warning," I said firmly. He tried to apologize, but I didn't let him off the hook easily. "You need to understand," I said very clearly, "what she did isn't something I can just forget. And the fact that you keep pushing me to reconcile only makes it harder." He promised to respect my boundaries moving forward, but I could tell he didn't fully understand. For him, family was everything, flaws and all. But for me, family was about trust, about respect, neither of which Lily had ever shown. In the weeks that followed, I noticed a shift in my relationship with my dad and Rachel. They seemed more cautious now, more hesitant to bring up Lily. I appreciated the effort, but the damage had been done. It would take time to rebuild trust, if not forever. Trust they had shattered with their ambush. As for Lily, I haven't heard from her since that night. Whether she genuinely wanted to apologize or was just trying to save face, I'll never know. Frankly, I don't care anymore. I've made my decision and I'm at peace with it. I'm also sorry for rambling on. There's just been a lot sitting with me, all day and every day. I'll keep everyone posted if anything changes, but for now, everything is at a pause. A final update came a few months later. After the ambush at my dad's house, I was finally starting to feel like things were settling down again. I kept my distance from family members who had been complicit in the attempted reconciliation and focused instead on people who supported me without judgment. But just as I was beginning to find peace, my biological mom called with news I wasn't expecting. She'd always been one of Lily's biggest defenders, often brushing off her behavior as a cry for help or the result of a difficult childhood. So when she started the conversation with an apology, I was immediately worried. "I need to say I'm sorry," she began, her voice shaking. "For everything." I didn't respond right away, not sure what to make of her words. She took my silence as permission to continue speaking. "For years I have defended Lily," she said with clear regret. "I thought I was protecting her, but I see now that I was just enabling her. I didn't want to admit that she could be capable of such terrible things, but she's proven me wrong too many times." Her words were a complete shock. This was the same woman who once told me to let it go when I tried to explain the damage Lily's accusations had caused. Hearing her acknowledge the truth felt surreal. She kept going with her confession. "She's burned every bridge, not just with you, but with everyone. Even her friends are starting to see through her lies. She's not welcome in my house anymore." I asked if Lily had moved out. "Yes," my mom replied immediately. "She's staying with a friend for now, but I've made it clear she's not welcome back unless she gets serious help." I didn't know how to feel about this. On one hand, it was validating to hear my mom finally acknowledge the damage Lily had caused. On the other hand, it felt like too little, too late to fix everything. For years, I'd been painted as the villain for refusing to reconcile, and now suddenly the narrative was shifting. I asked her why she was doing this now. "Because I know I let you down," she admitted quietly. "I defended her when I should have stood by you instead. I can't change the past, but I want to start making it right." Her words hung in the air, heavy with emotion. I wanted to believe her, but part of me couldn't help but question her motives. Was she genuinely trying to make amends? Or was this just another attempt to sweep everything under the rug? I appreciate you saying that, I told her carefully. But it's going to take more than words to fix this. I understand, she replied. I just wanted you to know I'm on your side now. I'll do whatever it takes to prove it. In the days that followed, I found myself replaying this conversation over and over in my head. My mom's apology had felt genuine, but I wasn't ready to let my guard down. Her years of enabling Lily's behavior weren't something I could forget overnight. Still, a small part of me hoped this was the beginning of a shift in our relationship. I decided to bring up the conversation with my therapist during our next session. By now, therapy had become a vital part of my healing process. It was a space where I could unpack my feelings without fear of judgment and figure out what I truly wanted moving forward. I told my therapist about my mom's apology, about her saying she wants to make things right, but that I don't know if I can trust her. That's understandable, my therapist replied thoughtfully. It's difficult to trust someone who has repeatedly let you down. Have you seen any actions from her that back up her apology? I thought about it carefully. Aside from kicking Lily out of the house, my mom hadn't done much to demonstrate her commitment to change. But the fact that she had taken that step was significant. For years, she had enabled Lily's behavior, refusing to hold her accountable. This was the first time she'd drawn a firm boundary with her. She kicked Lily out, I told my therapist. And she told me she's been standing up to family members who still think I should reconcile. That's a good start, my therapist said encouragingly. But it's okay to take things slow. Trust is built over time, not with one conversation. Her words gave me clarity. I didn't need to make immediate decisions about my relationship with my mom. I could take my time observing her actions, deciding for myself if she was truly committed to change. A few weeks later, my mom called again. This time, her tone was more upbeat. She told me she had spoken to family members who had been pressuring me to reconcile with Lily. I told them to back off, she said with pride in her voice. I told them they have no right to interfere in your decision, and if they can't respect that, then they don't deserve to be in your life. Hearing her say those words felt like a weight lifting off my shoulders. For the first time in years, I felt like I had a true ally, someone willing to stand up for me instead of pressuring me to conform to their idea of family. I thanked her sincerely and told her I appreciated it, that it meant a lot to me. It's the least I can do, she replied warmly. I know I have a lot to make up for, but I'm willing to put in the work. In the months since that conversation, my relationship with my mom has continued improving. She's shown genuine effort to support me, standing up to family members who still try to push for reconciliation and making it clear she no longer condones Lily's behavior at all. It's a small step, but it feels significant. As for Lily herself, I've maintained my decision to stay no contact. I've learned that closure doesn't always come from the other person. It comes from setting boundaries and protecting your own peace. That's exactly what I've been doing. Looking back, I realized something important. Healing is a journey, not a destination. It's messy and complicated, but every step forward is a victory. Lily's actions may have left scars, but they no longer define who I am. I found strength in relationships that truly matter, those built on trust, respect, and real love. For anyone else struggling with family drama like this, there's an important truth to know. You have the right to protect your peace. You don't owe anyone forgiveness, especially if they haven't earned it. Your well-being is worth more than the expectations of others. It's okay to prioritize yourself, guys. Thank you for continuing to read. I know it was a bit long, but I think now this will be my final post about all this. I hope it helps someone else who might be going through something similar. Remember, you're not alone, and it's okay to choose yourself over toxic family members, even if they're blood-related.